Welcome. I am Mike Hendrix from SMB Golf, and today we have two guests from TenFore Golf, Jonathan Ride, CEO, and Jarrette Schule, founder and CTO. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, I think I've been aware of TenFore for certainly more than 2 years. And you guys have gone through a lot of change in the last 18 months. I think that's fair to say, yes?
Yes, I think that's fair.
Okay. But Jarrette, since you're the founder, why don't you give us a little background on how this thing kind of sprung out of the ground, what the origin story is, and then I think everybody would be really interested to know about today and where the company sits today and how the technology works today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a coder by trade. That's what I've always done, 25 years or so. And so I'm an engineer at heart, and I worked for some big companies and some smaller companies. And then around 2008, 2007, I was like, I'm done working for big companies. They're not exciting. There's too many meetings. And I got an offer to work for a startup in the medical world. And then I loved it. And so I was pretty much a full stack programmer for different startups and different oil and gas, banking. And I just picked up the game of golf, and I kind of fell in love with it. And one of my playing partners, I remember, I'll never forget, he's just always looking for the car girl. And I said, why don't I just build something as a side hustle, like an app where you could just, order from the bev cart on the course, and they know where you are, and it's kind of like an Ubering beer to yourself.
And what year is this, Jarrette?
This would be 2016. We kind of just had this idea to build this app, and it ended up being like a little point of sale that ran on a smartphone, and then a little customer facing app that did the same. So they're two separate apps, and they're basically just a way for a golfer to communicate with a bev cart, like TenFore, good buddy, that kind of thing. And they're just communicating and buying. I'm buying stuff from the bev cart, and the bev cart's getting my location on the course in a human readable form. So John on the third hole putting green ordered 4 Bud Lights. She's paid, she's tipped. All she has to do is drop the beer off and move. So you're kind of removing that log jam. That's the way I had envisioned it in my mind, right? Just streamlining that business operation on the course. So
and the bev cart attendant, I think, has the other app, correct?
Yeah, well, it's really just a little point of sale app that would have notifications and say, hey, this guy wants this over here. But she could also ring up traditional orders at the same time. So I went to market with it. I had a buddy who gave me a little bit of money just to try it out. And I went to a PGA show back in I want to say it was like 2017. And I kind of hit some resistance. Every golfer I talked to was like, oh my God, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard of, right? And every operator I met, I knew nothing about the golf business. And every operator says, well, bev cart's like 5% of my total revenue, and does this integrate with my point of sale system? And I was like, well, gosh, I never really thought about that. He's like, yeah, I don't want to run 2 different reports at the end of the night from 2 different systems.
If it's only going to be 5%, or
if it's like something for event coordination or tournaments or something like that, then yeah, sure, right. So I was like, all right, back to the drawing board, no problem, and I'd come from industries where there was a lot of open APIs and communication amongst companies, and I was completely.
Jonathan, I'm sure you know why I'm laughing. Not a lot of
I do.
open APIs in this world.
You're spoiling the end of the story. Yeah. Yeah, so I just made phone calls as just a citizen, try to get hold of some of these big guys, and I couldn't even get a return phone call, right? Because all I wanted was to feed my transactions into their system. I didn't want to, impede on their business model or anything. And coming from a lot of different startups, I thought, this would be no big deal, just an integration. And I got no. I didn't even get a no. I just got nothing would get, none of my emails, none of my contact submissions, none of that got returned. And then I started kind of educating myself on what was out there, as far as point of sale and tee sheet and booking engine. And, you know, from a startup world, everything you use is always bleeding edge, right? It's the opposite of a big company. Everything you use in a startup is like the latest and greatest, because why not, right? You're just getting started. So when I looked at all the different offerings, I was just shocked. It looked like something that my dad wrote in Excel in the, you know, late 80s.
You know, we've had people on who started golf technology companies in the mid 80s or the late 80s.
Right. There you go.
And you know, one of the things that I've learned in this space, Jonathan, be interesting to get your thoughts on this. If the golf course, club, whatever, they're using tech for the first time, or tech to solve a certain problem for the first time, they actually don't know what else is out there.
Right.
And it's interesting, if you can be the first provider, how much that customer won't churn, because essentially you've solved the problem. It doesn't matter if the UI is good or bad. And I'm not suggesting that I don't want great UI. I think it's super important. But if you're first in, it's interesting how long they won't churn just based on the fact that you were first. And frankly, they don't know what else is out there.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think, and if you do provide a solution that's all in one, easy to use, that what is the reason to leave, right? I don't have a reason even to look at other software. It works. I can take money. I can have clients. I can communicate with my staff. I can communicate with my golfers. I can integrate with any partner I need to. So yeah, you're really entering, and with a great solution, you don't provide them a reason to look around or to leave, because they always have something that fulfills their needs.
Right. That's why I've always thought all the thousands of golf courses that don't use reservation technology today, it's an interesting market to approach, you know, because of the churn rates. And so, Jarrette, go on. You're not hearing back from anybody. You then start to investigate, well, what are the systems out there? You're not super impressed. What next?
Yeah, well, I guess I just kind of got I'm agitated a little bit that no one would respond to me. And then I started looking at everything, and it was more than the UI. It was like I was seeing screenshots of things that were just way too complicated. It looked like I was launching a NASA's rocket, right, instead of making a golf reservation. And so it was really more of a UX thing for me. Like, you know, an app can be ugly and function awesome. And a lot of these apps really do, like, you know, because they've been around for 40 years, right? They've had time to, you know, build out those features that they get request, right? And they've had time to do it. But I just thought that at the end of the day, 80% of those things are probably not used by 80% of the users. And it's just too much, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to build everything, right? I'm going to come in here. I love golf. I love the space. I see a gap in the market that I can exploit and build the best, most modern, cutting edge technology there, right? And that's who I am at heart. I'm a builder. I'm a farmer, not a hunter. I love being in my hole and building stuff, right?
Yep.
Anything that what gets me up in the morning is that there's something that exists in the world today that didn't exist yesterday because of me, right? That excites me. And I take a lot of pride in that, and I love it. I love coding. I love building software. So I thought, yeah.
And tell me just a little bit about your team today. How many other people are helping you code today?
7. The 7th is about to start on the tech side.
Wow. So you're really, Jonathan, you guys are really obviously building that out. That's great. So Jarrette, when you are a farmer, right, or a builder, and I think I've said on this podcast before, the builders are the people that impress me the most, because of what you just said a minute ago, that when you wake up on day 2, there's something in the world that didn't exist the day before. And that's always just grabbed me, you know, and I'm kind of drawn to those people. But one of the things we know is those people generally do need to get aligned with a hunter, if you will, right? If you really want to build something big. Obviously I'm kind of alluding to Jonathan coming on board here. When do you think you realized that? When do you think you realized, yeah, I've got a need here. If I'm going to get from, let's say you've gotten from A to B, but if I want to get from B to C, I've got a need here I'm going to have to solve.
Yeah. So I finished building the point of sale system, the database, the API, the point of sale, T-sheet, booking, all that stuff, the back-end portal. And it was just, of course, all just me at that point, right? Building everything for the first. So I worked on it from 2016, 7 days a week, no vacation. I got really, actually, I didn't go to a 7 day a week schedule till about 2017 and a half or so. And then I just started calling golf courses in my area and found a beta course in San Antonio and launched with them in 2018. Did about a 1.5 year beta program with them. And it was calls at 5 a.m. Hey, I've got a line of golfers out the door. Your app's crashing. It was the most stressful, awful 1.5 years of my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought my family was going to fall apart. It was really bad. But I got through it and, fell in love with my operators and they fell in love with me and we worked together and we built stuff that they didn't have in any of the other systems. I actually, before I built it, I put together a small golf advisory board because as a seasoned programmer, always build what the user wants, not what you want, right? So,
unless you're Steve Jobs.
Is that what he did?
Well, Steve Jobs' approach is different. I'm not saying it's right for everyone, but his approach was they don't know what they want. I know what they want. I'm
opposite. Yep. They know what they want because they live it and breathe it every day.
Amen.
Agree.
And so I did the beta course and then it just started growing organically with just me. And I ended up hiring one of the guys on my golf advisory board as my first employee. He was a customer success manager and he had run 7 golf courses at the same time. For Alamo City Golf Trail in San Antonio, and he had used all the different systems. And so I met with him every couple of weeks at first to kind of get like, well, what's the perfect tee sheet? How do you build a tee fee? A green fee? How do you? What sucks about building a green fee right now? What's awesome about it in these different systems? And trying to like piece together a perfect plan. And we built it, got on our beta course. Grew organically, and then fast forward to 2022-ish. I was like, man, like I sure am growing slow, but I liked it because I didn't have a sales team or anything like that, but I loved it because as an engineer, I wanted the product to be perfect before I started scale.
Let me ask you, because we do have a lot of. I'm not even sure very many people know how many people right now are trying to build TenFore. Young people, people just coming out of college. And for whatever reason, I seem to get those phone calls, right? Those people seem to, and so I know they watch this, right? Explain a little bit if you can, like maybe from 2018 to 2022, like how are you eating? How are you living? How are you sustaining yourself? Because that is one of the questions these people ask me is, I don't know how long I can live on ramen, so it'd be interesting to hear from you.
Yeah. So, I got $100,000 from a buddy of mine, who to this day owns 10% of equity in the company. He believed in me. He's in the oil and gas business. And I took out some credit, and then I cashed out my retirement and
all in, all the chips.
Absolutely. 100%. And so, yeah, it was tough. I was, as a programmer, I was making great money.
As a programmer. Understood. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was broker than I'd ever been, more stressed than I'd ever been, more tired than I'd ever been, miserable, but at the same time, more fulfilled than I'd ever been in my life.
And do you have a family at this point?
Yeah. I have, both my kids have since grown up and moved to college and since I started the company. So I pretty much I invested my 40s and I'm happily married. But we're having our 25-year anniversary in December.
Good for you.
And So she's been kind of part of this stress and misery along with me.
Sure.
And, luckily, she works. We've always kind of been a split income family. We kind of make the same amount of money. So it's been real stressful because we were living that lifestyle that, two incomes can only afford. And so, yeah, fast forward, and I'm really good at knowing what I suck at, right? Which I think is important as a programmer, as a human being, actually. And so I knew I needed somebody that was good on the business side to grow the business because I was ready. By the time I hit 2021, 2022, we were smoothly getting through the days without any bug reports. People were happy. I hadn't had a single customer leave in like 2.5 years by the time 2023 hit. And so I just started poking around, and I had learned about Jonathan and his success with Supreme. I really liked Supreme as a company, looking from afar, from the outside. I liked their brand. I liked the look and feel of their software. I felt like they were kind of like a forward-thinking, very like innovative company. I saw the partnership with Barstool Sports, and I learned about Jonathan, and we kind of met. It was kind of he had heard about me, and I had heard about him about kind of around the same time. And so we just started talking, and I knew that he would be the one to lead up growing the company.
Well, okay.
Making it a company, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's for the listener and whatnot, so Jonathan, you are the co-founder of Supreme Golf, and I'll just give a quick synopsis of Supreme, and then you can beat it up and correct me. But Supreme Golf was the first company that I can recall that came along that kind of acknowledged that there were different ways or sources for golfers to book tee times, and you were going to put them all together. And the way I would tell people about Supreme back in the day is I would say it's really the kayak for tee times, that kayak was willing to sell tee times that came from Expedia or hotels that came from Expedia or other places, and kayak mashed them all together. And that's how I explained Supreme. But why don't you tell us your take on Supreme and what the vision was, and then we'll talk about how you guys got together here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got it. What we started as, right? I was, I come from the private equity world, so I was looking to invest in certain things, like a health food supplement company. Then I met with this group. I don't know how we got started talking about golf, but we started discussing golf. So I did some research and found out at the time, like less than 10% of tee times were booked online.
Yes.
Like, why is that? I book all my flights online. I book everything online. This is 2011. Well, after some research, it's because there is no single inventory. There was nothing that combined them. So I looked at doing it, couldn't get a penny. No one would, even wasn't 5 years ago, PE firms started looking at golf, right? Maybe a little bit longer, unless you were Golf Now or Comcast. But anyway, long story short, I said, okay, so I just need to get Easy Links, which was separate at the time from Golf Now. So I just need to get Tee Off and Golf Now to work together. And they said, well, my timing might be off, but there was a lawsuit between them. You're never going to get them to integrate. And I met Will McIntosh. I sat down there in 30 minutes. We put a deal together, right?
That's great. Minutes. Yeah.
Because he saw the value of it at the time, and it was extremely valuable then because we could create a single inventory. He'd have more places to sell his tee times, and we did it. And I just said 2011. That was 2014. So I don't want to act like that was a call because I was in the same boat as Jarrette. They don't like to call back, right? Because they get a lot of them.
Right.
So that's what we did. But then what we learned and what I learned is that wasn't exactly what the golf owner wanted, right? He didn't mind, or she didn't mind, selling tee times on a platform. But what they were looking for was also more help on their side, on the operational side with technology. So our next move at the end of 21 or maybe 20, we were 100% consumer revenue. But then what we did, we expanded into golf course software, and we started with membership subscription software for public golf courses. 2 years later,
which is still an interesting place today. I'm not sure that anyone has completely capitalized on that yet, but I can remember when you did that. I thought, that's a little different. We haven't seen someone try to roll that up, so to speak, if you think that that's a fair way to think about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, within 2 years, it was 50% of our revenue.
Yeah.
So we were 50-50 after a couple of years. We had over 50,000 monthly members on the program. So it was really growing and it continued. And then the natural was for us to get into the point of sale world, right? I mean, that was a natural for us to step into. I bought Golfler, which used to be Club Caddie, right? So we used to own that, and then sold back that back to Jason, who's a good friend of mine.
So a couple. I gotta help everybody catch up here. So Golfler, it's actually interesting, Jarrette, and I'm sure you know this now, but Golfler almost has a little bit of a similar origin as what TenFore has in terms of you were trying to solve a bit of a different problem than what Golfler became. And for people that don't know, Golfler ultimately evolves into Club Caddie. And goes through a couple of different acquisitions and et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I did want to touch on, because I don't think we've really ever mentioned Will's name on this podcast, but Will McIntosh, this is a very intelligent person, very successful person. He came to be part of the Golf Now organization through an acquisition Golf Now made of World Golf. And so Will was in the Myrtle Beach area and was exposed to lots of golf courses, and he understood that he actually came from a content perspective. If you could write a ton of content and have a ton of URLs all relating to golf, ultimately that was going to be a good acquisition target. And that's exactly what happened. And then Will's career really took off. And Will is still involved today with Golf Now. He's gone on to some bigger things with an NBC. But I think, Jonathan, you and I would agree. We've all been on podcasts together. Really, really sharp guy, Will McIntosh.
Extremely sharp. And I used to tell people he'll do more in 30 minutes than you'll probably do in a day.
Yeah.
Right? It's just how his mind works. And there are people like that. So to me, and probably to you too, there's no surprise where he is today, right? He'll probably be the next, at some point, the chairman of NBC. Who knows? I mean, he's not going to stop. It's just how he's driven. So yeah, and he was extremely helpful to me. So,
That's
and
right.
I know there's lots of thoughts on Golf Now, this or then, but at the core level, at the business side, it was to help, the course owner operators, which is what then drove us into where we went to with subscription membership, et cetera, and things like that.
You were one of the first guys, although I think Will was in this, had this perspective too. You could really see the vertical of what if I could solve like all of the problems in the golf shop, right? Like, wouldn't that be the big business if we could use software to solve a lot of different problems within the golf shop? That was a different vision, I think, than a lot of people had. A lot of other people just thought, well, I want to build a point of sale, or I want to build a point of sale on T-sheet. Both you and Will, I think, were thinking about things like membership as another revenue source for the golf course, obviously tee times and how you would sell tee times. And, even one of the roles that I played at Golf Now, the group purchasing. Right. Well, what if I could help a golf course save money when they purchase things? That was the verticalization, really, of the business. So you mentioned Golfler, and I think you guys bought Golfler and sold it.
That's right.
And then I believe, why don't you talk a little bit about the relationship with foreUP? Because certainly foreUP was a big piece of what was going on at Supreme for a while.
For sure. It's funny because Evan and Joel started foreUP about the same time we started Supreme, 2011.
And so this is Joel, Joel Ragar. These guys are in Utah. Evan, is it Tashima? Is that
Tashima? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go on.
Yeah. And then there was another Joel who was the CTO as well, and just a great group of hardworking guys, right? And you talk about ramen noodles. I mean, they probably split the noodle, right? I mean, in the beginning, but they did an amazing job over there. And then working with Evan, and we always communicated along the way on our paths and things like that. An opportunity came up for us because we were looking to invest and acquire a T-sheet and point of sale, a golf management software company, to acquire, a sizable minority position in foreUP. So it took a while, 6 months or so, but we acquired it. And then what we did, we brought them their first multi-course owner operator. And people don't realize what Supreme. We've always been dedicated to the owner operator, right? We might have not known everything they wanted in the beginning, or we might have thought they wanted something different, but we've always been dedicated to that. So we moved Century Golf over there, American Golf over there, Arnold Palmer, which is part of Century Golf. So we brought there, so we helped grow that company, and I joined the board. And the plan was for Supreme to buy that company. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great point of where it was at, of what we wanted to do with what you just said about expanding the vertical. But then you get a Club Essential / Battery Ventures come along with, almost twice the money and with a big sledgehammer. And what do? You just sell into it, right? You don't have a choice. So
what Jonathan's alluding to there is, and so ultimately Club Essential Holdings, but through Battery Ventures, who's in Boston, Club Essential Holdings ultimately purchases foreUP.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So we sold into it, which we didn't have much of a choice, right? And plus, it was a tremendous return that we managed to do. But we still were then left without a golf management software. And it wasn't long after that I was referred to TenFore, which I'd never heard of, by the way, right? Except in the months preceding that, hearing some noise from Jarrette, some people talking about, have you heard about this company in San Antonio? Things like that. But MG Ornder is one of the key that came to me, and Golf Now, believe it or not, right? That came to me, MG came to me and he said, hey, do you know of this company TenFore? And I said, a little bit, but not a lot. He said, I think it's the best software I've ever seen. And if you know MG Ornder, he's not saying that just to say it. He's not built that way.
You're right. He is not built that way. Jarrette, how did you come to know MG? Do you even know how he learned about TenFore?
No.
Yeah.
I barely know him today. I think I've met him twice, maybe once or twice.
I think you and 1,000 other people in golf, so don't worry. So yeah. Go on, Jonathan.
Yeah. So I said, yeah, absolutely. We looked at it, and I thought, goodness gracious. I mean, how did this guy do this? Like, under the covers, so to speak, right? And then, so I had my team, and we had a tremendous team at Supreme Golf, right? That worked at Century and American and all these other companies.
And let me just touch on the Century and American thing, Jonathan. Is some of that born out of the fact that you all were working in the same city? You were going to cross paths with these guys and kind of know them, and it just made sense ultimately that you could probably help service them and help them grow their companies.
For sure, knowing Jim Hinckley, I mean, he is a very large figure in golf of what he's done. And it's funny because we could spend hours just talking about how Club Corp spurred all these different companies, from Arcus to Advanced Golf to Century Golf to Arnold Palmer Golf to American Golf. It all kind of comes from Club Corp. A lot of these guys, Jim was the president there, I believe. And I always wanted to work with Jim. But we also had a tremendous advisory board, a tremendous board at Supreme Golf, that pretty much anyone we needed to speak to. MG was my only golf person on the board of Supreme, believe it or not. Carl Sparks, former CEO of Travelocity, Sam Gilliland, former CEO of Sabre. Why? Well, because I wanted to get golf out of just golf. I thought we're always so antiquated. Look what travel's doing. Let's get some new blood in here and some new people looking at this. And then, Charlie Ware, that was a big funder of our company. And Charlie knows everybody. Right. So, Jim was a good friend of his, which then got a serious meeting, and we just knew we wanted to work with Jim Hinckley. And it just went from there. But, we could offer a lot of technology. He likes to push the cart as well. So what we were building, and then what he wanted us to build to service his courses and the owned ones and the leased ones, et cetera, or the managed ones, it was just a great fit. So, yeah, that was a wonderful relationship. And again, he's another person, Jim Hinckley, I couldn't say enough about in this world, about what he did for us and how he helped us grow.
That's great. So, okay. So, Jarrette, you still have this issue. You want to grow the company. You're looking for somebody to grow the company.
It's kind of like that. I just liked Jarrette the minute I met him. And the reason is, I still say it, how does one person build this level of software? API driven. My dreams of building a compound company, which we'll talk about in a second, right? I just couldn't believe it. And I'll give you one more thing. I'll hold on that one. So anyway, I wanted to buy Jarrette at Supreme. Why wouldn't I, right? I mean, it was the best technology we'd ever seen. And I'm a big everything's for a reason type guy, right? So I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I wasn't supposed to buy all of foreUP. I was supposed to buy TenFore. And we were, as a company, ecstatic about buying TenFore. But what happened? You get the lawyers involved. You have some some majority partners that were part of the foreUP sale. foreUP sale would equal non-competes. Should we really do it? So it was a shock. I just knew I wanted to work with this guy, I think is the way you should look at it. So I called him one day, and to talk about shock, I'm not sure if he talked to me for 24 hours. I said, I'm going to leave Supreme. And he's like, what? I said, I want to help you build your firm. What you've done is ridiculous, and I want to be a part of it. I mean, I co-founded Supreme. I funded Supreme in the beginning, and I'd been there 12 years. But I had a great operator in Ryan. Ryan's a tremendous operator. It was perfect for him to take my role, operate the company as the president.
And Ryan is the co-founder. You're co-founder, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Give him a shout out if you want to here.
Yeah, he's like a brother to me, and he's a great operator, right? And so it was perfect. So I talked to him about it, and he's like a little bit nervous, right? And he said, all right. So I said to Jarrette, I'm leaving, and I'm going to come to you. And so I talked to my board. I'm not saying they were the happiest that I left, even maybe today. It was the right thing. So that's more of the story, is I wanted to work with him, and I know how to build business. I've done it successfully several times. I have the ability to fund, so we don't have to take and give away the farm, so to speak. And now to one last thing, the day I told MG Ornder I left, MG Ornder was on my board at Supreme. In the next couple of weeks, he resigned from Supreme, joined TenFore. He said, with their software and you leading the company, I want to be involved. And then became an investor. And in 11 years or 12 years at Supreme, he never put a penny in. So I think it says a lot about what he thought about TenFore as well. So it's actually kind of a cool story. And, I love Jarrette and what he does. He's just driven.
And just a little shout out for MG too, for people that don't know MG and like, well, what are his chops and that kind of thing. Very, very successful operator. One of the first operators in the United States that understood the potential of having a top tracer range at your facility. There were a lot of people that needed a lot of convincing. MG saw that before just about anybody did. And so that'll give you an idea of this guy can see some things that other people don't see.
100%. And he owns Hampton Golf, right? They have 32 courses, building some new courses. He really does push the card. And if you've ever been to Blue Sky where he put that range, it's crazy. I mean, it's like a mini top. They're sitting by the fire pit. They're sitting in chairs up by the court waiting. And he doesn't want to rush anybody out of there, because what are they doing? They're drinking, they're eating, they're hitting golf balls. Yeah, so he can see things like that. Yeah.
And today, I don't think Hampton has TenFore installed everywhere, but I'm guessing that's the plan over time or something like that, that Hampton would become a pretty big customer of TenFore.
100%. We already have a few of their courses on. And I can tell you my plan is all of them, right? We have to work with, they have a great team over there run by, I'm Travis and Ashley and Justin. But we work closely with them. So yeah, that's the expectation and the hope. So
Jarrette, Jonathan calls you, and now you probably get off that call and think, am I going to do this? Is this crazy? What's going through your mind at that point, Jarrette?
Yeah, a lot of things are going through my mind. I've never been one that is afraid of big moves, but I wanted to take my time with this one. I had definitely aged, quite a bit since starting the company, and it took a lot out of me, and I wanted to make sure that whoever I partnered up with was going to be the right person. And I think for me, a big thing for me is just trust. Trust and attitude to me are what I look for, just when I'm hiring anybody, a programmer, anybody. And I think Jonathan and I just had really good chemistry. We met 6 months, Jonathan, over 6 months in meetings. So I knew he was the right guy. I knew he was the hunter that I needed. I knew that he was the missing piece to take the next evolutionary step in the company. And I was happy with the product the way it was, and I knew it was ready to. I knew I was ready for a team. I was sick of doing all the coding, and handling all the the operators and yeah. So I needed help, and I needed money. I had only hired the people that I could afford from the money we were bringing in. Like, I had no investor money, and we still don't have really any big investors yet. And we haven't had to have that. And I thought Jonathan was just the perfect piece. So we went ahead and made it happen.
One of the things that Jonathan brings to the table, I don't think this is something I have been exposed to more and more since I've kind of filled into this seat of talking to all these different founders and builders and whatnot. Jonathan has the perspective of the golfer as well as the operator. And there's few people in golf that have that. And what I've learned in talking to a lot of builders like yourself, Jarrette, is yes, we talked to golf course operators, owners, whatever, and we heard from them what they wanted. But very often we maybe forgot about the golfer and the booking experience for the golfer, or how the golfer goes through workflows when they don't even know they're going through workflows. Actually, Jarrette, early on, you were thinking about the golfer more than the operator, right? You were thinking about, how do I solve this problem for the golfer and getting a beer quicker on the golf course? And I do think that is one of your superpowers, Jonathan, is you understand both sides of that equation, I think, really well. And so hopefully that helps TenFore to strengthen and deliver products to the operator that resonate with the golfer as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the course is the seller, right? And the golfer is the buyer, right? So there has to be a very good marriage between the two. You got to make it easy for the golf course to sell and easy for the buyer to buy. And then if they buy something, what else can they buy? What else would they do? Can we do some predictive analytics so we can get ahead of their thoughts, right? And things like that. And I think that's what drives us into being a compound company. I'm a big fan of the company Rippling, right? And if you read about what he's done, we look at golf courses and I equate it to golf. You have golf course owners, operators, pros, staff, that they have 5 systems to run or 6 systems to run.
For
I mean, how do they do that? We were talking to one the other day, about email. So what if I cancel an email, if someone cancels their email, I got to go into this system and update the email. I got to go into that system and update the email, or they're going to continue to get. It's like, holy smokes, what are we doing here, right? So as a compound company, we're the core software, right? Your golf management software is your core software, integrated payments, all that. And we believe in partner networks, right? So it doesn't matter if our integrations with Gallus, Golf Genius, Oracle Opera, Hotel Key, Springer Miller, Metolius, who I love, Notify, who's killing it, things like that. We want those to be part of, because if we can get to single sign-on, if we can get to part of, imagine the data touch points, right? So if I know everything they're doing and I'm absorbing all of that data into my GMS system, it makes me just smarter. It makes, not me, the golf course, smarter, right? So now I can communicate. So yeah, so with what Jarrette's done and what we're doing, when you talk about the golfer and the golf course, is bringing tools and solutions that can satisfy both, which is to create a more efficient organization and drive revenue.
So tell us about the company today. What are the problems you all solve? You have a kiosk. I mean, we're talking hardware now for a moment, but you have a kiosk that not a lot of the people talk about or introduce, certainly to customers. I'd like to learn more about the kiosk, but what separates TenFore? Why are you better at solving these different problems than other systems, et cetera?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to real quickly just say the genesis of the kiosk thing was it was one time I really took the Steve Jobs approach and thought it wasn't something I had heard from operators, but it was something that I thought would be really cool, and I would have fun doing it, was to build, because I would go to the grocery store. I was like, why can I do this here, but I can't do this at the golf course that has a line out the door, right?
That's right.
Why can't I do this on the first hole of the golf course and not even go into the pro shop, right?
Like an ATM machine, almost,
yeah.
An all-weather kind of.
So I started looking up. I mean, even like the corner sushi place in my neighborhood had one, and I was like, why are we not doing this in golf? And so I built that in 2022, and then I thought that there was just so much potential there. Right. And even if you're like a small golf course that wants to save money on staff on certain hours of the day, you just stick a kiosk in there. Right. So,
and a kiosk can be really good at upselling.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I was just going to say, when you said what's different about us, it's that all-in-one feature, right? And not just the all-in-one of the system, but all-in-one as in a compound company that come to us and we will help you. Right? You don't have to manage 7 contracts and 7 bills going out from, your accountant every month. What are you looking for? And then we help as well. This is what, we think, what are you trying to tell us? But when you just said about hardware, that's equally important to us, Because how many times, Mike, are people getting software that can probably do a lot more than their system allows them to do, right? Because it demands more memory, more usage, etc. So software and hardware to us have to integrate and work together. And I need to be very clear here, because we use the Clover family of devices as well. Our software is 100% proprietary. We do not use any of the Clover software, right? Now, Jarrette, as a tech, I might say, well, we do integrate, we're into the system, but I'm talking about our T-sheet, point of sale, booking engine, e-commerce, that is ours. We're not, I think Whoosh uses Square, right? I think, Chrono Golf, which is Lightspeed Golf, uses Lightspeed. We are one system.
Right. System. I mean, another way to say that is you could use everything that TenFore has and not have a relationship with Clover. That is another way to look at that.
100%, and a great way, much quicker than the way I said it. So yeah, exactly. But even to our systems, right, and our hardware, 22-inch touchscreen computers in the pro shops, or 15-inch, whatever they prefer, handheld devices, tablets, anything we can to make the golf course better and more efficient and make it easier for staff, right? Touch, grab and drop, everything. So when we do almost every single course, even if we have to pay for it, which sounds crazy, we want them to have new hardware, because what Jarrette's developed and what he's built, it's so good. We want you to maximize your use of it. And to do that, having a touch screen, we can pass tabs through the entire facility, right? So if Mike comes in, you want to put in his cards on file, you never have to bring your credit card to our course again, right? So you're out on the course, and whatever your rates are based on your type, you have a tab out there. Well, I'm in the pro shop now. Well, I want to get some balls, throw it on my tab. Oh, now I move to the restaurant. So it's ease of use, all in one. That's why we look at TenFore Golf as a needed solution in the market today.
It's almost like, with TenFore Golf, every golfer can be a member for the day. That's what it sounds to me like a little bit right there when you explain it that way.
100%. But even as we look at the system, and when we work with MCOs or we work with resorts, because that's important to understand with us, what Jarrette built is a private, public, muni, resort software. He doesn't need 4 different softwares, right? We have an MCO that joined us, Spirit, right? Great owner. He has a public course and a private course. Well, he wanted, can I get one system so I can have reporting, everything above, all these things? Well, yeah, set that one for public, this one for private. Resorts, we do room charging, right? They would come to us, can you do this? Now we're looking to work with Oracle, right? About their Oracle Opera, Springer Miller, Hotel Key, etc. So
let me touch on the resort piece for a minute, because actually when you all landed Tullymore and St. Ives, that's a high-end facility in Michigan, and it was kind of one of these white whales I always used to chase. That did get my attention. So clearly it said to me like, TenFore must be able to work with some other, operational software, because I know if St. Ives is going to have to use it in conjunction with some other things.
For sure. And that's the key to our integrations, right? And an open API and the way that Jarrette built this software, right? It has no limits. I can take a 9-hole course that simply wants someone to be able to swipe. We have a course that uses minis, which are, if you're familiar with Clover, they're Clover minis, little 8-inch screens, right? So people come in, your name, your information's in that. You can book your tee time, whatever you want. Your card's already in the system. That's how they operate their course. It's so automated. And all the way up, like you said, Tullymore and St. Ives, Matt Golden, great CEO, GM, the way he runs that facility, he pushes us, right? He pushes this system perfect. Keep pushing it. We have other resorts, we'll announce shortly, but we fit that mold for them, and we make their job easy, because again, it goes all the way back, all in one. It's an all-in-one, easy to use software. I don't care if you're Tullymore and St. Ives, or if you're a municipality, and if you're an MCO that has specific needs, and we talk a lot, we have a lot of experience with MCOs, obviously from my past as well. We will, everybody says you don't do custom develop. We will do custom development.
Let's talk about that, because I think, and you never know what you don't know, I think you were the first point of sale T-sheet company to respond to this reserve with Google situation that I was able to, kind of uncover through some of my web checks. And, today, as I see it, TenFore is actually live with reserve with Google. And I know from talking to some different people, you had to have been nimble there. You had to have had some kind of culture within TenFore that said, hey, we can do this quickly and do it the right way, and it's going to matter to our customers. Talk a little bit about how you were able to kind of swallow that frog, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I'll pass that one to Jarrette, but I think that says a lot about Jarrette, right? And he said something earlier that he gets excited about technology. He gets excited about delivering for our customers and our clients, right? And Google, when they did with the Golf Now, you know, and no matter what you think, I mean, Golf Now broke that door down. I tried to get, you know, Google to handle Supreme's inventory for 5 years, and there was just no interest, right? But what it did, it created an opportunity for golf management software companies. So Jay Karen had come to me and he said, hey, is there any way you can get us with Google so we can talk to them? One of our advisors, David Young, used to be the head of digital for Expedia. Well, they happened in the past, right? They spend a lot of money with Google, so he knows who to talk to. Within a day or 2 days, we were on the phone with Andy at Google, and they've been nothing but helpful. And we said, can we participate? Jay, we got Jay on the call and everything. We had 20 plus CEOs, GMs of T-sheet and point of sale GMS companies all on a call after that, filling everybody in, because it's a good for the market thing. Everybody should be on that for that golf course. They should own that book online button.
But Jonathan, we've not seen that happen. We've only seen TenFore. That's part of my point is there must be something different at TenFore, because clearly there are you have competitors with deeper pockets or more resources, but the fact that you guys kind of got to it first, and let me just back up for a second. So I'm talking to MCOs today. There are people, seasoned people in this industry that think this deal with Google and how Google has now been exposed to tee times might have a bigger impact on our industry than anything that's happened in the last 10 years. That's how big some people believe this can be. But again, I go back to, but you seem to have gotten to it before other people did.
Well, that I'm going to pass to Jarrette, because it's how he's built the software, right? And how he's built us, that we have that ability to be nimble, to be quick, to be front of the line. We're in pilot programs now with Google, which the information hasn't even out where they're going next, right? But we're at the front of that line. We were on the phone with them yesterday, but I'll leave that to Jarrette as to why we're able to do things like that when others struggle.
Well, Jarrette, why don't you pick that up?
Yeah, so I think the genesis of TenFore is a little bit unique in a few different ways, right? So one of the ways is that normally when you start a technology company, you have a business person that has an idea or buys an idea from a founding team. And then there's money injected, and then the developers are hired. With TenFore, this was a side hustle of mine, right? And I'm passionate about software. That's all I think about. So when I started the company, I could do whatever I wanted on the technology front. Use all the tools that I had acquired over 20 years building software, and make the company a tech-first company, a product-first company, instead of a business-first company, right? Like the furthest thing from my mind was how to, add additional revenue streams, or how to, develop relationships with investors or whatever. That was like the least. What I wanted to do was win, right? I wanted to win because I had the best product. And I will never I will die before I let this company not be constantly pushing the envelope with not only software, but the ideas that kind of take us to the next level, right? And Google's just one example of a lot of things that we're working on. But with Google, the second I knew that it was a possibility, I said, this could be the future of the marketplace, the golf online marketplace. And
yes, it could. Because I agree with you.
To me, if I get on my phone and I want to find a barbershop near me, right? And if I can just hit a button and I've paid the barber and I have the appointment and all that with Google Pay Online or whatever, we're working on stuff behind the scenes with, being a member at a country club. If I'm a member and if I can just tap my phone on the front desk and just go and play golf, right? All these things are like, hey, why aren't we doing this yet? Right. And so speaking to the nimbleness is my coders are my brothers. I'm still a coder. I'll always code for this company. And so I'm on every stand-up call. And I know how programmers think, right? I know they want to be left alone. They don't want to be jacked with. They don't want meetings all day, right? My last big corporate job I left the day they had a meeting about how to best have meetings.
Right.
I was like, I should be in my cubicle coding, right? Not talking to business people. So we're always going to be a tech first company as long as I'm here. And I plan on being here for a long time because I plan on being the best, the #1 company in golf. And
hey,
there's no limit.
Why would you have any other goal, right? It does, like these people that say like, yeah, we want to be in the mix or whatever. No, the goal should be to be the best. Why would that not be the goal? Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah. And then Google, back to what you said, can be, 2 trillion searches a year, right? 2% of the search business.
Right.
I got a feeling, by putting golf in the front of the, the page, it could do some great things.
Yeah, I think well, listen, at the end of the day, where you all sit, you just provided an extra service to your golf courses. And now it's a matter of getting more golf courses to appreciate that service exists and take advantage of it. But I did think it was great that you all got to that. And we should mention too, Jonathan, your former company also got in the game, right? And so Supreme can facilitate that. Golf Now can facilitate that. And now, of course, TenFore can facilitate that. The only little blip in there for people that aren't aware, Golf Now did it en masse and kind of forgot to tell their customer about it, right? And so that was the part that we called out. But I want to give them credit. I've been a guest on a couple of shows, and I have said consistently, at least the minute they realized it, that they kind of made a mistake, they did step up. And so what else can you do once you make a mistake? You can either hide from it or you can step up. And those guys at Golf Now stepped up. So that was good, I thought.
Yeah, and then I think at the end of the day, what did they do? They broke the door down.
That's right.
The door's been broken down now to the benefit. We were the first GMS provider to integrate. And we're doing some really fun stuff that we'll talk about on another, podcast. But they're doing some really cool things where they're going in golf. And I think what it said for us, I think it's representative of our entire firm, right? TenFore Golf, with what we're doing, what the level of our development, what Jarrett's built, we will be at the forefront. We're just going to be. It's just how it works. And I think, I'm a big put your money where your mouth is, right? Well, we were the first to integrate with Google. I've talked to others, they might get it done this year. With some of the changes they have to do internally, it might be next year. But I'll tell you, there's a good group of golf management software companies out there working for their customers and their clients. And they all want to do things that, that help benefit and, grow the entire industry as well.
So Jarrette, explain to, what are the problems that you think that TenFore addresses today that maybe some of your competitors struggle with? Like, why does the operator appreciate using TenFore more than using someone else?
Going back to, I would say the #1 thing that operators love about us is the ability to customize the software, right? Which is our hook right now, right? And as we scale, obviously that might change a little bit.
And it should. So,
right.
For what that's worth. But can you, because this is interesting. We don't have this conversation. Can you talk us through, like, what does that mean? You can customize the software. I think that means someone picks up the phone and calls you all and says, I need this. But walk me through a little bit of, like, what does that look like or sound like when you say customize the software?
Yeah, thank God it's mostly not me anymore they're calling. But we have PGA professionals as CSMs, right? So that means that every golf course has their own assigned PGA professional that they can pick up a phone and call.
I think that's super smart, by the way. Go on.
Text or email, because the thinking early on for me was golf people want to talk to golf people, right? They don't want to talk to me. So that's a big key one. We're and I wanted to go back just one paragraph. We are one of the main differences, going back to the Google and all this other stuff. One of the main differences for us is that since we are our #1 ally, our #1 teammate is our operators, right? Not golfers, not the market, right? We are on a team with our operators. That's the number. That's who. If they call at 5 a.m, we're answering the phone, right? Those are our people. And so, for example, our booking engine product, it doesn't siphon them off into some other competitor, right? It's not a marketplace. This is a siloed booking engine for our operators, our number one people. So with that paradigm, when what I love with the Google integration is if I do search on Google golf courses near me, and there's some secret stuff going on with phase 2 with Google that you'll really like. But right now it'll show, you go, oh, I like this golf course. You see the list of ways to book, right? So TenFore will actually say, by the end of this year, will actually, instead of saying TenFore Golf, it'll say the name of the golf course, and it will always be the official, it'll have a little official badge on it. And it's the first result in Google. And then you have the Golf Now and the Supreme and all that. And what I love about that is that these operators are investing in TenFore, and they're investing in a product that's theirs, right? It's not the markets, it's not the customers, right? It's theirs. And with Google, we're able to like make them the top of the list, right? This is Kingsgate Golf Club, top of the list.
Yes.
And that's important to me, right? That we always recognize who our teammates are. Other than that, I think that our technology to me is already the best. I mean, that's of course subjective, right? But the things with Clover, for example, I've always I've been using Fiserv and Card Connect as my processor for a long time. We used to be with Stripe and a couple of others, but I finally landed on Fiserv and Card Connect, mostly for their tech stack and the way that credit cards are processed securely. But when Fiserv acquired Clover about 3 or 4 years ago, one of my things I'm always looking for is the best hardware to couple with my software, right? So with our kiosk, we use Elo, right, which is the industry leader in commercial grade tablets. And I built software that's called Jackrabbit that only runs on, it's a kiosk exclusive software. So it's a completely different product than our point of sale T sheet, than our booking engine, right? And so Fiserv bought Clover, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I could just put my software on those awesome devices. I mean, you got to see these things, right? My whole time at TenFore, I've been looking for a solution where a bartender or a server or a bev cart can have a device that can fit in one hand, that's one unit, that has a credit card tapper, has a printer, has a scanner, has a screen, has everything you need in one hand.
And a complete system.
The whole thing, right? Even a pro shop clerk can have it, or a starter. And it all runs on a single device that's about as big. It's like a phone, but it's fatter, right? And it has everything in it. And so they announced this program called Clover Connect, where companies like mine could actually put my software, not use Clover software, and run it all. So what happens is we have that our product Birdie, which is our point of sale T sheet, but it basically when it knows when it's running on a handheld device, and it completely morphs the T sheet, everything, so it looks good on that small portrait device. So yeah, I'm going on, but I think we have the best product. I think that's why people want to spend money on this, right? It's not because they like John or they like me or whatever. They want something that makes going to work a little easier, and maybe finding new ways to make a little bit more money, right? And get you a little bit more in the black as a golf course. And if we're not doing that, then what are we doing, right?
And can you, I think, well, talk to me a little bit about the booking engine. Either the booking engine recently went through an update or it's about to go through an update. I'm just curious about the booking engine and maybe roadmap, and what's to come.
Yeah. So with the booking engine, one of the struggles we were having was I think what every booking engine runs into at some point is, how do we scale this thing? How do we make it to where, X thousands number of users can be on it simultaneously?
Right.
It runs beautifully. Right. And one of the big things was optimizing these tens of thousands of lines of code that I wrote in a hurry 6 years ago. Right. So everything at TenFore is constantly being rebuilt. And I know it probably drives Jonathan crazy, but it's important to me that, like all the stuff I built is all getting rebuilt right now, right? Into brand new tech stacks.
So that you can support scale, I think
Yeah.
is the way to think about that, right?
So last week, we actually made a complete, we went live with a production version of our booking engine that instead of it loading in 1.1 seconds, it now loads in 0.1 second.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And that's one of the things that we noticed. We were looking at some of this 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Because we're always thinking about our booking engine rankings, and we could see a difference, in speed and experience.
Yep. And UX UI is next. And our entire backend portal, which is hundreds of pages of functionality, right? Everything from marketing tools, SMS marketing, to inventory tracking, to planning weddings, has full events. In fact, one of my favorite operators in Florida, Sandhill Crane, and they just recently opened a course next to them. It's really innovative. That kind of has that
like a par 3.
Yeah, like a par 3 with that final hole that joins both the 18 and the 9 hole, or the par 3.
Yep.
Into a 19th hole. So they've been with us 5 years. I think they were one of our earliest courses, and they were like, hey, like, can you build this thing? Like, can you build a clinic system? Well, what's a clinic system? Like, well, we do all these clinics. We do, driver clinics for girls only. And we do, couples clinics, or we do private lessons, and we do this and we do that. We'd like to do what you do with the booking engine, but for like clinics. And we want to be able to implement all these rules, right? Like, how does a person have to be? Is it girls only or boys only? Is it, do they need equipment? And we want to enforce those rules on sign up, and we want the customer to be able to pay in advance for the clinics. And we don't want to have to keep rebuilding the clinics on the back end every time we do a new clinic, right?
And so this is where the customization, I think, comes in, that you can have that conversation with them, and that you are all nimble enough to make that happen, to maybe, I don't know if the right way to say it is squeeze it into a roadmap, but make it be part of what you're doing over the next, 30 or 60 days.
Yeah, and I loved it, because everything, all those types of things make TenFore so much better, right? And it gives us a competitive advantage in the market, but also it just makes it better. And that's what, like I said, that's what gets me up in the morning, right? I want TenFore to just never stop being better.
And so to wrap up, Jonathan, obviously, I would think sales is a major focus at this point, right? The product is in this really good place. You probably want to go from, X amount of clients to 2X amount of clients, and then 2X it again. And I would think that that's probably a major focus over the next, 6 to 18 months?
Yeah, for sure. We got a great product. All the sales to date have been by word of mouth or through relationships. We do some marketing through HubSpot, and things like that. But where we are is there's such an inbound at the moment in time. But I am building out the sales team, right? Because when I look at future growth and where we're looking to go with this company, for sure we're gonna build that out. And I think one thing you had asked about is part of our sales approach. When we have discussions, is the custom development plan, because how do we do that? Well, there's a core timeline for this company that's untouchable, right? That just moves. But it doesn't mean you can't have an integration specialist, or you can't have someone over here that looks at things and works with Jarrette about how we can design this or do that or integrate with Google, etc. Like when people wanted surcharging, when we did some research, we learned they want to surcharge, not everybody, but a select amount, of course, want to surcharge, but they're worried about the government regulations, the taxes, the laws, etc. So what did we do? We go ask Fiserv, because they're a monster. They're biggest in the world in terms of transactions. And they said, well, that's funny you ask, because we actually have a pilot program for surcharging, which will automate everything. We're like, okay, wait a minute. We want to be a part of that, right? So we already have courses on it, but it knows where the credit card's from. It knows the zip code. It knows all those things.
Right. All those things that other people have kind of wanted to make be roadblocks. Ultimately, we all knew technology was going to fix that, right? Exactly. Technology was going to take care of the operator and make sure that they were never even going to be able to break a law.
Right. And then what's the key here? It's us as TenFore always being at the forefront, always pushing the edge. We didn't stop core development to do that. We have a person that works on that with Jarrette, right? So they work on that, and now that's in our portfolio. Integrations that we're working on will be in our portfolio, et cetera. So back to the sales side, and then where I think we're extremely valuable to resorts, NCOs, et cetera, is we say, okay, what are your gaps? Tell us your gaps. And sometimes we'll get, Mike, I'm not kidding, we'll get 2 pages of gaps.
Yeah.
And some of them are so rudimentary, and you're like, well, how does that not talk to that, right? So we start filling, and normally, Jarrette, correct me if I'm wrong, we probably handle about 70% with what we're doing, right? Because even on our online booking, right, you can even on our software book a tournament and pick your spot of where you play. So you can reserve it or pay it, or you can say, hey, listen, us 3 are playing. I don't know why, but Jarrette picked the 13 hole, so let's jump on the 13 with Jarrette. Or if we want to hit into him, let's jump behind him, right? So you're able to do that. But to us and to his mind, these are things that we golf should have already. So with the sales, it's providing the all-in-one, the differentiation, the ability to fill the gaps that they already have in their existing software today, and to be able to, everybody says rip and replace, right? I'm not ripping out an Everest accounting system and putting in an Oracle accounting system.
Right.
On the surface, I could literally provide you my phone, and it's the equivalent of opening a different app. And where the key is for us, the amount of data that we will transfer for them from their existing systems, so they're not starting at 0. And you remember, it's not that, well, there's some systems that still do it. You start at 0 when you go over to that system, so we want them to run, to walk, crawl, and then boom, the day they hit it, and we want to be on site. Right. Training is key. We love 2 days before, 2 days after, or a day after, because what happens on launch day, people are a little nervous. Hey, where's that button? Right, it's right here. Okay, perfect. So that's our selling points. And, like I said, we have great peers in the market. Everybody's working hard, but we know we have a great software, but it's why I wanted to be a part of his team, right, and what he's doing.
One thing I'll say that I think you all kind of proved, and maybe it wasn't intentional, but if I'm an operator and I say, look, I want to partner up with somebody that is on the forefront. It's interesting that you mentioned surcharge. It's TenFore that got the surcharge piece automated, I think, before anybody else did. And it's TenFore that got the Google piece taken care of before anybody else did. So now you all of a sudden are starting to have a track record where you can say to prospective clients, if you want to be with someone on the forefront, we've proven that's where we are. And let me walk you through these 2 different scenarios and how we solve those. I just think, and again, maybe it wasn't intentional, maybe that wasn't a strategy, but it actually now can become part of your go-to-market piece because it turns out that it's you guys that did that.
It's 100% part of our strategy. And the reason is, as courses are total things every day, right? Yeah, we can do that. Sure, we can do that. We believe in putting our money where our mouth is, right? Google integration, we felt it was a priority because every single course that we have in our portfolio wanted to be on it, and they wanted to go direct.
Let me just throw a piece of Google out there. So we track every review for every golf course in North America on Google and Golf Pass. And just for what it's worth to everybody out there, Google has more than double the amount of golf courses. We're not talking about individual reviews. The amount of golf courses that have ever been reviewed, Google is more than double Golf Pass. So that you start to get an understanding of just how stinking important Google is.
It's critical, right? I mean, 92% of the searches are done on Google, right? So we want to be that, and for them to invite us to be in that game with them, and they love it, right? Because Jarrette pushes the card, right? We have a core operating system that's stable, it's scalable, it offers everything they need for the course. But these are the fun things, right? We get to add that, and I think it demonstrates how he's developed this technology. It's API driven, it's nimble, it's secure, right? And we can add these to the portfolio. And that's the key. I think you hit on it, is that if you want to join someone that is going to continually bring you the best products and service and support, we're proving it. All right. And we're just scratching the surface with those 2.
That's right.
You wait over the next 6 to 12 months, what we have in, that's coming, even down to full room charging, itinerary management at the hotels, integration with these PMS systems, right? That's all coming because it's important to resorts. And it's always been just that one company, that handles, well, if it's a resort, it needs to go to this one or that one.
That's right. Well, listen, lots of different takeaways. I know we're kind of short on time here, but it's cool that Tullymore and St. Ives is pushing you. And then really one of my takeaways is and it feels like you're pushing the heck out of some other people in this space as well, some of the things you're doing. And now, you know, I'm going to root for you guys that it bears fruit for you, right? Because ultimately it's got to, you know, I mean, you're two really smart guys and you're doing some really cool things. And so, like I say, here's to some fruit for TenFore. I hope it goes that way. So, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I feel like it's overdue. The Google thing kind of pushed me over the top. I thought, wow, that is impressive that you guys got that done. So congrats on that. Jarrette, I hope your kids are doing great in school, or if they're out of school. And I hope all this feels like it was worth it, because you are now one of those builders there's something here today that wasn't here yesterday, and that's because of you.
Thanks, Mike.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, Jarrette, thanks. This has been the Tech Caddie podcast. We'll see you soon.